In our last reading, we saw Sati, the incarnation of Mother Durga, onto earth, doing strong penance. And finally, Lord Shiva appeared to her and asked her what she would like, and she said she wanted him to be her husband. And he said, so be it. Trembling with joy, Sati went home to her mother. Shiva went back to his ashram and tried to return to his dhyan, his meditation, but his life has changed. He tried to invoke Om in his heart, but Sati's voice whispered there instead. He saw her watching him with such love, he thought she had come to his ice cave, and his eyes flew open. Shaking his head when he saw she was not there, he summoned me with a thought. With Saraswati, I, Brahma, went to him. He was pining on his mountain. He was like any other man. He did his best to hide his feelings. They shone through his every act, though, like the sun through the morning mist. Awkward as I had never seen him before, he said, I have been worshipped by Daksha's daughter Sati. She observed the sacred rites and having given Hari and you my word, I was bound to honor her worship. She said to me, be my husband, Shiva, and I replied, Sati, be my wife. Was this entirely true that Shiva spoke? He who cursed me to be forever without worship in the world because I told one small lie about the flower on top of the Shiva lingam. I did not carry any more. He was no longer calm, and I was pleased. Did he remember how he mocked me when he found me in my daughter's arms? Did he recall how cruelly he had laughed? He was the mockable one now, great Shiva, the laughable one. He was love-struck and in such a hurry to send me off to his prospective father-in-law to finalize his wedding. While I smiled to myself in satisfaction, he said, Brahma, you must ask Daksha to give me his daughter. He drew me aside from the others, shedding every presence of detachment. He said hoarsely, as quickly as you can, Brahma. I cannot bear being apart from her. That was such a delicious moment. All the planning, the waiting, the penance was worth that moment. Then compassion for the great Maheshvara moved me. Didn't I know how he felt, I said. And I will go to Daksha at once, I told him. He will offer you his daughter himself. Meanwhile, Sati had come home to her parents. Seeing her mother knew what had happened. She clasped Sati to her, and mother and daughter wept for excitement. To be fair to him, Daksha was also happy when he heard the news, and he announced a celebration to mark the day. He began to wonder how to take the next step. Shiva had gone back to his mountains. Would he come again? What course was proper in this circumstance, which was so exceptional? Should he send a messenger to Shiva? No, if Shiva spurned an offer of Sati's hand, the humiliation would be unbearable. Who could believe the ascetic's legendary disdain for women had vanished overnight? Yes, Shiva had promised Sati he would be her husband. Shall I worship Shiva myself, wondered Daksha, his mind a whirl. Even as he longed for a mediator, I appeared before him, coming straight from Shiva. He was shrewd enough to guess this was no routine visit by a father to his son. Also, the triumph on my face must have been plain. After welcoming Saraswati and me with the due homage and making us comfortable, as a son should to a father, Daksha said, Father, Brahma, is there any special reason why you have come here? I laughed out loud, so exhilarated was I. I grasped his hand and cried, without being pierced by Kama's arrows, Shiva is smitten with your Sati. Excited as any young lover, he is no longer meditates on the Atman, but upon your daughter's face. He imagines her coming to him and asks his Gana, is she here? When they answer no, he sits grave for a while, then asks again, is she here? Love has vanquished great Shiva. I have just seen him, and he worships Sati today exactly as she worshipped him. Clapping my hands, I laughed again. I did not know that sooner than I thought I would pay for this unseemly merriment. Not quite sharing my elation, Daksha waited in silence. He knew I would tell him how to proceed. When I controlled myself, I said, I will tell Narada to bring Shiva here. When he comes, offer Sati to him without delay. Leaving Daksha bemused, I flew back to Shiva, waiting anxiously for me. What happened, Brahma, eldest of Devas? Did Daksha refuse to give her to me? You must convince him that she and I are meant for each other. You must tell him, as his father, to change his mind. So he babbled for a while without letting me get in a word. He was in such a state, wringing his hands and mine from time to time. Finally, raising my voice before him, as I had never dared or ever had reason to before, I managed to gain his attention. Daksha did not refuse what you asked. What do you mean? He cried, not believing his fortune. What I say, my lord, Daksha said, now that he asks for her, my daughter shall go to him. Why else did she worship him? It is my wish also that she becomes his wife. Let him come to me at the time of an auspicious conjunction of the stars, and I will give her to him. So Daksha said to Shiva, and I, hiding a smile. Said I, Brahma, hiding a smile. Shiva actually whimpered in delight. He beamed like a newborn sun. The mighty yogin and I scoffed at him silently, though I could not help rejoice with him as well. So infectious was his joy, inscrutable fate recorded my scorn. Shiva said, with you and Narada and all your older sons, I will go to Daksha's house with my Ganas, summon the rishis, all the devas of the universe. The stars already spin into their house of exaltation. With a thought, I summoned my children, you among the Narada, and they all arrived in glory. Then called by Shiva's wish, and most glorious of all, with their limitless army came Mahavishnu and Mahalakshmi flying on golden Garuda. It was the sun's day when Shiva and his train set out for Daksha's abode. The devas celebrated on the way, and most of all the Lord's Ganas did. Shiva rode on his bull, Nandishvara, at the head of a motley and brilliant wedding party like the world had never seen before. If you remember, Daksha received us, Narada, with great ceremony. He came out himself to escort Shiva, Vishnu, and me, and devas and rishis into his home. He worshipped us all and gave Shiva pride of a place to sit. Then he came and knelt before me. Father, perform the marriage rites as prescribed in the Vedas. From wounded pride, I had once begun what was culminating this day. Joyfully, I began to perform the sacred rituals of the marriage. The stars and the planets were in exceptional harmony, as if they were sensitive to the love of Shiva and Sati. Daksha gave his daughter to Shiva, but in our eagerness, we did not worship the heavenly ones, the planets and the constellations as we should have. In his impatience, even Shiva was happy to have the ceremonies over. Being the priest, I should have been more meticulous, guilty for the secret scorn I had enjoyed at his expense. I wanted to please Shiva now by hurrying through the solemn rites of marriage. Almost at once, misfortune struck. When I think now, it is all a trial that Shiva and Shiva came through it with the most dignity, though he was the most severely tried. I've also wondered how much Vishnu knew, but did not tell us. At the wedding, Narayana, Vishnu said inscrutably, Shiva, look at the four of us. You are fair, Sati is dark as twilight. I am blue, and Lakshmi white, auspicious one. Lord of all living, promise me you will kill the man who he is that looks at your Sati with lust. Shiva agreed, I shall. Brahma said, I performed all the kriyas prescribed in the scriptures. I asked the bride and groom to circle the sacred fire. They circled slowly, for this is the ordained way. Shiva walked in front. We concluded the ceremony. The devas rained flowers on the newlyweds. All the sacred Gandharvas and Kinnaras broke into resonant songs. The Apsaras danced in sublime celebration. Shiva folded his hands to me and said, Eldest of gods, what should you have of me as Dakshina for being our wedding priest, O Brahma? What would you ask for? Ask for anything. I said, Shiva, please stay here forever in this altar to remove the sins of men. I will build an ashram here and sit in tapasya. If a man visits this shrine on the 13th day of the bright half of Chaitra, let his every sin be quelled and all his ailments disappear. Shiva said, so be it, for the sake of the people. Sati and I will remain here forever. With his bride, he stepped into the heart of that altar, and lo, a holy image appeared for the ages to worship. Then, because the subtle stars urged him, Shiva hastily took Daksha's blessing for himself and his wife, Vishnu blessing and mine. Setting Sati before him on Nandi, he set out for his Himalayan home of ice and silence. And they spent many, 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 many thousands of years together in loving embraces. After many years, one day Sati said to Shiva, we have lived long enough in this place. Let us roam the world below. I have not seen it at all. Shiva called Nandishvara to carry them down the mountain. Just then, something dark and furtive stirred in the depths of Shiva's mind. He could not put his finger on what it was. Down came Shiva and Shakti into the plains of India. They roamed the ocean-grit world, illuminating every place they visited with grace. Once they came to the numinous Nandaka Vana. Marveling at the richness they saw as they went along, Shiva pointed out many old secrets of the Vana to her. And she, Sati, often noticed tiny precious lives in the undergrowth of branches that escaped him. Then they came upon Rama and Lakshmana, panic-stricken in the heart of that forest. Ravana had abducted Shiva. Repeatedly, Rama cried out his love's name. His hands were clenched, his face was a mask of despair. Mangala shone a baleful light into his fortunes. Lakshmana was so distraught. Tears coursed down his noble face. He never spoke. He felt bitterly guilty that he had left Sita alone with his brother. And even though his brother had had left him alone, when his brother Rama had told him not to leave Sita's side even for a moment. Shiva materialized before Rama in the glade of sorrow. Shiva bowed to Rama. Jai Vijaya Baba, said Shiva to Rama, blessing him. Sati stayed invisible, watching and amazed by what her husband did. Rama bowed low to Shiva, and the brothers resumed their quest. Sati asked, who are the two archers, Ruda? Shiva, how did you bow to the blue one and the older one? Shiva, how did you bow to a mortal man? Shiva smiled. He caressed her cheek. That was Rama and his brother Lakshmana. Ravana the Rakshasa has carried Rama's wife Sita away to his island Lanka. Rama is the sleeper on the waters. He is Vishnu incarnate. So I bowed to him, Sati. For a moment, Sati's face clouded with doubt. Mortals were strange to her, and she did not believe Shiva. The dark thing in Shiva's heart clutched at him again. Without pause to think, he said to his wife, "Look, Rama has come full circle in anguish. If you doubt what I said, go and test him yourself." Shiva could have bitten his tongue the instant those words were out. He could not recall them. Sati accepted what seemed a playful challenge. What did she know about Shiva's oath to Vishnu and Brahma? If she doubts me for even a moment, I will abandon her. Sati assumes Sita's form and face exactly and approached Rama. She flung her arms around him and wept as if she had been lost in the jungle. Rama did not see his wife there at all. He bowed low to the goddess and said, "Devi, where has Shiva gone? Why, Mother Shakti, have you taken Sita's form? Do you mock my grief?" Ashamed, Sati was herself again. She blessed Rama and went back to Shiva. Shiva asked her, "Are you satisfied?" Sati bent her head and said nothing. Yet if only for a moment, she had doubted him. She had plunged after her doubt, and now destiny has to take its course. Shiva said nothing of his rash vow to Vishnu. Instead, he pacified his dear, sweet wife. She was so disconsolate. She pined for a while. She seemed almost to be dying of guilt. It took all Shiva's tenderness to restore her spirits. Bole Baba ki jai, Jai Mahamaya ki jai. So ends this part of the story of Shiva and Sati doubting Shiva. Jai Mahamaya ki jai.